to me, the way I see spirituality in general is that form of connection. So I see myself as an entity that was created by some kind of higher power. That this higher power created me in his image, or whatever you want to call it, and basically took part of his infinite light and shined a little bit of that energy into myself, which we call soul or whatever it is, and that's what's making me alive. So technically speaking, I have a portion of God in me.
Yeah.
But if I'm not hooked up, so I'm thinking of myself as a lamp, if you think of it this way,
Mm.
the energy that the lamp is getting, that light that it's producing, needs to come from some kind of energy source. It needs
Mhm.
to be hooked up to the wall. It needs to be hooked up to, power or something, right? It needs to draw from some kind of energy. So I'm asking myself, I need to be connected to something, okay? And that to me is that spiritual connection. Now, how do I do that? How do I draw that energy? How do I draw? It's by asking myself, do I have the right wattage? Do I have the right connection?
Mm.
Do I have the right prongs? Am I grounded?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Now, all that is from my little bit of experience in electricity, but that's besides the point. But it really gets me thinking, and it gets me to challenge the status quo, asking myself, is this right for me? And is this the right connection for me?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't feel right, it just isn't right. And I have to keep challenging that. So happens to be that my namesake, actually, there is a rabbi in the Talmud. The Talmud is all about, discussion and challenges and stuff like that. There's a rabbi in the Talmud. His name is Rabbi Yirmiyah, actually. So
Mm.
Yirmi in Aramaic is Yirmiyah. So Rabbi
Mm.
Yirmiyah was actually kicked out of the study hall because he asked so many questions. And I related to that. The moment I heard that story, I was like, yeah, that's me, like I do. And that to me is really what spirituality is all about, and how to become more spiritual is by challenging the status quo and asking those questions.
Yeah.
How to be more spiritual is really challenge, and not being afraid to challenge.
Yeah.
Understand that that's a superpower. That's something that's unique to you, and don't be embarrassed. And hey, if a certain organized religion doesn't let you do that, you know, but it's always about asking that question. And again, Dr. Nupi over here is saying being curious. That's so
Yeah.
true. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would add to that an area of curiosity and an area of self exploration and of asking in particular goes as to ethics and values. Now, I personally have a definition for purpose that I express in a mathematical formula, which is skills and experience plus, or sorry, skills and talents plus experience times
Mm,
service is how I
mm.
define purpose.
Wow.
However, purpose alone isn't enough. Inner truth values is also at the core of spirituality. And if we're not questioning
Right.
not only the values of those around us, but of those we are living, then we are also disconnecting from
Right.
spirituality. Spirituality is, of course, purpose pushed out into the
Mm,
world, purpose manifested through human action and behavior. But it is
right.
also connection to core values and
Absolutely.
questioning those values. Now, we may have values that don't withstand questioning or don't withstand basic logic. So I'm not saying just indulge whatever values that you have. I may
Mm,
have all sorts of values. I may think that people with blonde hair are somehow inferior and need to be sitting at the back of the bus, just like my parents' ancestors were made to sit in the back of the bus in Alabama when segregation existed. That is a value system that would not withstand basic
right.
logic, would not withstand any sort of questioning or even any ability um, to survive an answer as to whether I would like to be treated that way under the golden rule. But
Right.
if you're willing to truly question your own internal values all the time, to analyze your behaviors day to day and
Hmm.
as ethical decisions, not to mention holding up ethical standards for those that you associate with and thinking about the ethical standards of those in your culture, then you are, I believe, missing out on true spirituality.
Right. I
Wow.
just I want to say one quick thing on that, and then I know Baruch has something to say about that, and I'll jump to him. But just to expand on, I think I missed it when I was saying there was one more element, and I'm very very glad that you brought this up, because there's one more element in the sense of being truly spiritual. I can't remember exactly there was an expression I remember hearing. It's also in Hebrew, so it translates roughly into, you know, if I'm just gonna say, hey, this is what it is, or this is my opinion, this is my thoughts, or whatever it is, that's a human, that's the way humans are, okay?
Yeah.
I think they say, two humans, four ideas, or something like that. Whatever it is, like that's a human thing. I have my opinion. I could whether agree with you or not agree with you. What's a godly thing is that I could, even though we disagree on something, I could still get along with you
Yeah.
regardless
Oh,
of how
yeah.
whatever your opinion is, whatever it is. I value your opinion as a real, true, valuable opinion, regardless of how I feel or how I believe towards it. And that opened me up to your mythical Greek stuff that I actually read, and I got educated a little bit more about another culture I would have never read otherwise. But I like you, and I respect you, and I appreciate you, and that's why I would read it, to connect with you. That's my way of connecting to you, and that makes us almost best friends. You know what I mean? That's incredible. Whether I agree with it, whether I don't, whether I believe in it, that doesn't make a difference. And that right there is a godly experience, a spiritual experience where I could love everybody and I could get along with everybody regardless. That to me is becoming spiritual.
Although I do ask back around that because this is something I wrestle with, and I'm glad to wrestle with it because I think that it is an important thing to wrestle with. Is there a boundary beyond which that tolerance of different ideas will not go? So I do think in
Sure.
American culture in
Sure.
particular, the idea you disagree with me, so I'm not speaking to you, or I don't like you, or I'm not
Hmm.
going to engage in further, has gone to ridiculous extremes. Right? You
Hmm.
don't like pink nail polish, so I'm not speaking to you.
Right.
Fine. I'm going to cancel you because you came
Hmm.
up with a funky hairdo or made an off-color joke. I've got a
Right.
problem with that.
Yeah.
However, where does it stop? Those that advocated slavery in the American South, for instance, and actually went to war to preserve their right to hold other people in bondage. Is there a place where one can say, that's the ethical line that I draw? I will not like you if you're out there willing to send people to die so that you could be able to get free labor on the back of another human being, or people that have belief systems that they sincerely accept that are fundamentally racist in a whole other number of ways. All of us could talk at length and with passion about those that have
Sure.
acted that way and act that way, and in accordance with those value systems to this day. Now, the big question I have about that is whether rejection is truly the answer, or engagement is the action. There is an African American man, for instance, who's famous for going and meeting up with Klans people. That would be crossing a line I'd find very challenging. But he does it, and apparently a lot of people have hung up their Klans person robes because of him
Mhm.
going that far and really living what you're talking about in a way that's beyond what most people would accept.
You're 100% right, and there has to be a level of boundary. It's something that I talk about. Mark and I talk a lot about. We have actually a free course on it. It's called Mental Real Estate. So I'm going to put a link to that.
Good.
I highly encourage a lot of people to take that, because you're right. There has to be a healthy kind of boundary, not one that pushes people away totally. Not one. For me, it's like I tell this to a lot of missionaries. They come around to us and they're like trying to convince me about Jesus and whatever. And I'm like, listen, I'm not trying to convince you about, you know, my Jewish God or whatever. I'm open to have a discussion with you, but not until when you're imposing on me, or when you're trying from. In other words, you're saying that my beliefs are not valuable. They're not correct. And now you want me to believe yours. That is infringing on my privacy. That's infringing on where I am. And that's where I'm going to draw a line. So clearly there has to be a healthy boundary, and it's an art form to learn how to do that and still be open and still be inviting.
The way I look at it is, again, we don't have to agree on the same things. We can hold two different opinions, but we still have to be civil people, and there's a lot of hot topic issues nowadays. And there's a lot of things that we can get angry or upset about. And I have my beliefs, and I have my values and my morals and my ethics, and I have my reasons for it. And a lot of it comes from Torah, from the Bible, from God, from my religion. And that is how I'm going to believe, and that is how I'm going to hold. And that, there are certain things that this is the way it is for me. But just because somebody else sees something differently, and just because somebody else believes something different, doesn't mean necessarily that they're a bad person, unless it's putting somebody else in harm. I think that's where I draw the line personally. Yeah. Personally, I draw the line where if you're going to use your religious beliefs or your spiritual beliefs to harm another person, then I've got a problem. I'm only going to bring up this topic because I know that, Scott, you did a show with somebody else and a rabbi on this topic.
Yes.
But it's a very common, I think you know which one I'm referring to already.
Very much so.
I think it's a very common topic. I don't know what the proper terminology and everything like that is. But essentially it's, homosexuality or somebody being gay. I've experienced this with people that I'm a rabbi for. There's some people that I'm very close with that they are Jews and they, identify, or whatever you want to call it, as gay. They are gay. How can I then go and say, well, one second, that goes against my personal beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. But then how can I be the rabbi? How can I have a relationship with them as a Orthodox religious Jew? Their beliefs don't go along with my beliefs. Mm-hmm. Well, because my belief above that is, first of all, that's an issue that God's going to deal with. Mm-hmm. God doesn't, when it quotes it in the Torah, he says that, this is whatever. He doesn't say this is an abomination and you go and take care of it. He just makes a statement. Mm-hmm. Right. He doesn't tell us to go and do it. Yeah. What he does say
That's true.
is treat everybody with respect. Mm-hmm. Love another person as you would love yourself. So my obligation is to treat anybody who does not hold the same beliefs as me, to treat them with respect, to treat them as an equal, to do what I believe God would want me to do, which is, elevate them and help them to connect with God, and let them take care of their personal matters on their own. I don't need to get involved in that. So I'm not going to go and start problems and cause fights and hurt somebody else just because of my beliefs. And if somebody's going to do that to me, though, and I've cut off people from my own religion because they have tried to do things that, from a Jewish perspective, that would cause harm, and that's just not what it's about. So I think that's where I personally draw the line.
On the one hand, I do believe that in certain circumstances there is a moral obligation to stand up for what's right, mm-hmm. and to not let bad stuff just happen. Right. On the other hand, if it's a matter of disagreement, or if the circumstances really, after weighing everything, don't justify it, there is value in just shutting up. Mm-hmm. My opinion about everything does not need to be heard by the entire world.
Yeah.
I don't need to be getting on Twitter, for instance, and offering my personal little thoughts on every little controversy of the day, and particularly in a way that's inflammatory. I've learned there is true value in listening and sometimes just not saying anything at all. It's none of my doggone business.
Totally true.
100%.
I actually often tell people, you'd actually sound wiser if you were quiet.
Oh, yeah.
I could respect you more if you actually were quiet.
Yeah.
And I actually tell this to a close family member. I tell them, the way I respect you is by not talking to you. It's through silence. That's the way I respect you. Because I know the moment that person opens up their mouth or I say anything or whatever, let's not go there, and it actually says it in Torah that the wise is the one who knows how to be quiet. Sometimes you need to know how to be quiet.
How many times have I been guilty of exactly that? Deciding I just needed to say something about something. have an opinion about something I didn't even have any stake in, didn't
Right.
know anything about, but I had an emotional reaction, or I thought I knew a little bit of something, so I needed to self-express. Yes, self-expression is a fundamental human right. Self-discipline and self-restraint are profound virtues that, in my opinion, by the way, are
Love it.
deeply tied to a mature expression of spirituality.